Hi, love. I'm so glad you're here. I feel like this is such an important topic. There's so much misinformation about feminine energy floating around the ethers for a very long time. And I know when I was trying to heal my own, what I call the wounded feminine, none of that stuff made any sense to me. None of it really lined up. I couldn't really fit in. In fact, when I would read a lot of the materials on feminine energy, it was packaged and positioned as a marketing tool in order to attract a man into your life or to be a better version of your feminine self so that you could please more men or be attractive to the right person. And I have to tell you, that was a real turnoff to me because my whole life was about trying to be who everybody else needed me to be instead of who I really was. I wanted to take the time to really understand this feminine concept, the feminine energy, and do it in a way that's super simple to understand. My desire for you is that you see yourself in this situation and you're able to start the reclamation process, that you find your way back home to your natural place that you reside without having to perform, perfect, people please, control, constrict, do all these things that I call being PC, perpetually codependent, in order to fit into some stupid box that you or I think we have to fit into. So I have lots of notes. It's a powerful topic and I don't want to leave anything off, all right? So I'm going to start by using some of these words to describe the misnomer of what feminine energy is. And this is what's floating around out there. Are you ready? Demure, polite, agreeable, dainty, domesticated. Now I have to tell you, I wouldn't use those words to describe feminine energy as any more I would use them to describe the ocean. Can you imagine if I described can you tell me about the ocean? I've never seen it. Well, it's demure, polite, dainty, agreeable, and domesticated. You and I both know that's not how the ocean is. How would I describe the ocean? Well, oh my God, right? It's everything. It's all encompassing. It's majestic. It's astounding. It's calm. It's deep. It's wide. It's expansive. It's flowing. It's rhythmic. There's so many things, words that I would use to describe the ocean because it's so many different things. And just like the ocean, feminine energy is really best described as water. And water isn't one form. Water takes on many forms, right? It's solid, it's gas, it's liquid, it's all of these different things. It's the steam, it's the ice, it's the clouds, it's the dew. It's the stream, it's the river, it's a brook, it's a creek, it's an ocean. And what the feminine energy is about is having access to all these different things that envelop and encompass this one concept. Notice I didn't say it was agreeable or dainty or had long hair or wore the right ruffles, right? But I'll tell you, we don't understand it because it gets wounded along the way, and then we get bumped and pushed into these ways of thinking and being in order to behave a certain way. Now, how does it get wounded? Overtly and covertly. Here's an overt wounding. You go into the world with your born natural capacity to be the ocean, to be expansive and flowing and allowing and all-encompassing and the whole rainbow of emotions and within all this just all-encompassing beauty. But maybe you grew up in an environment where you're in this body and somewhere along the way you learn it's not safe to be in the body. This could be an overt just obvious way it was taken from you. Maybe, unfortunately, you suffered some kind of unwanted touch, attention, words, and somebody made you feel really bad about having access to all this rhythm and flow, and you said, oh, that's bad. Oh, I can't, I'm not allowed to have this kind of feminine energy because when I do, it gets misused, it gets taken advantage of. You can't trust anybody to not misuse it, right? It's just like the ocean, and people dump all their trash in it, right? I mean, that's kind of how we can feel like, well, this isn't, a playground for people's like crap that they want to unload on me. Walking down the street, it doesn't have to be so malicious. It could be just a side comment, an unwanted glance and attention. I remember when I was a young girl sitting in my bikini, laying out. I was probably 12 years old. There were some guys working on the roof, and they were like singing the song Brick House. I'm 12, right? And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, okay, so that's what this is for. This is for attention. This is for people to, and I didn't want that. So I promptly got up and decided, well, that wasn't how that was supposed to go. Maybe it was also malicious, not from an opposite sex. Maybe, a lot of the wounding that gets done actually comes from other women. Other women who don't understand their own femininity, they repress it or reject it in themselves. So when we start to grow and become our feminine selves, it's a threat. And many mothers are raising up their daughters, shaming them for their body when they get their period or they start growing boobs. It's like, oh God, put those away. Don't show anybody. I got told many times my entire life that I was boy crazy. When I was like 6 years old, that I was boy crazy, or we could be told by our own mothers that we're slutty, or we should lock down our body, or we shouldn't try to put ourselves out there so much. And also, not just with your body. Remember, femininity or feminine energy is the ocean. It's many, many forms. It's all your senses. It's your sight, your touch, your smell, your taste. It's all your emotions. It's access to the many forms, right, of the water. And so you might have been told your femininity with your emotionality wasn't the way to go. So that got repressed, right? Where you shouldn't feel so much. Don't be such a baby. Suck it up. Toughen up. I'm just helping you. Or it could be, more covert kind of manipulation where the person you're with is like a well-meaning mother who says things like, well, nice girls don't do that. Honey, you need to be a lady, and this is what a lady does, and this is what a woman is, and this is how a lady handles herself. Well, honey, the ocean ain't polite. The ocean ain't nice all the time, right? Sometimes it's beautiful and calm and welcoming. Sometimes it's a freaking hurricane, okay? But well-meaning women who misunderstand your femininity will try to pigeonhole you and say that's not ladylike. And then even worse, will have conversations with you later down the road, like things like, you need to do your womanly duty. That's what a woman does. A woman does this and a woman does that. And all of a sudden we go, holy crap, this is the box that I'm supposed to fit in. And then we rebel. And depending upon the wounding that happened and the type of wounding you had, now if you don't know, that's part of my job, right? To help you figure out. A lot of the people that I work with even have no even real concept how this wounding happened in the first place or what it was. Because again, a lot of people come in and say, or sit with me via Zoom or however we do our sessions, and they'll say, my mother was a sweetheart. My father was a gem. Although there was conditioning there into a way to behave and perform within the world that just is not meeting your needs. When you behave this way, you end up feeling numb, repressed, dead inside, like a puppet going through the world with no real feelings in it. So when you are wounded, you split off, your femininity fragments off into one of two worlds, right? I call it, the one is where we're hypersexuality. Hypersexuality is where now we move into this hypersexuality. I want you to think of as like the porn culture is a really great representation of our hypersexuality, where my femininity then becomes a part of display. It becomes a method and a means to coerce, to seduce, to manipulate. And it's not really about how I feel. Corsets don't feel good. Heels a lot of times don't feel good, right? But I will project whatever image in order to get approval, validation, my needs met, say in a false sense of control. And I'll use my sexuality, my femininity as a means to project onto you what I think is what the world wants, right? Oh, well, a femininity dresses this way and wears their hair this way and talks this way and has sex this way. It's very performance based. It's toxic in the way where, my body isn't mine. I don't own my body. I'm not comfortable in my own skin, but I use it as a tool in order to get what I want. Now, a lot of the feminine, there's feminine workshops that you could go to where they'll teach you how to dance sexy or how to like seduce and do all this kind of stuff. But real, true feminine energy, right, doesn't really care how it looks. Right? It's wild. It's free. It's unleashed. It doesn't care. Not many times unleashed feminine energy is not going to look like it looks like in the porn movies, okay? Where somebody is arching their back and their hair's flowing down there. 9 times that's just like, it's like it's like this kind of free in my pleasure, in my senses, in my pleasure. And I can tell you, a lot of those women who are doing those performances have no pleasure, has nothing to do with it. But again, feminine energy is about being in our pleasure because it's about being in our senses. Our feelings are our compass. And so we're not doing what doesn't feel good in order to like look a certain way or fit in, right? Let me see what else I have here. So again, yeah, it's really about the manipulation from the way that I see it. This hypersexuality is in order to like put on a show, in order to get something, or I use my sexuality as a means to an end, right? I'll use it on display, but really it's not a genuine, authentic thing for me. It might be genuine and authentic for you to put your body on display and post pictures of your butt and do all these different things, but I'm going to ask you, is that really what's your motive? And you'll know if you're in your feminine energy, because the feminine energy doesn't have a motive. It does it because it's just what's authentic in the moment. It's not about what I'm going to get from this. Are you going to like me? Did you like that picture of me? Do you approve of me? Or it doesn't go F you and give the big finger as like a rejection. It's just in the flow and in the moment. And it does whatever feels right and genuine in that moment. It's not buttoned up. It's not agenda driven, right? It's just free flowing. And again, when you think of this feminine energy about a willow tree that's like rooted, it's strong, right? It's rooted in what its own truth is, right? It's rooted down, but it's flexible and malleable and bendable within the wind. And because it's so flexible and it's allowing and it gives permission that way, it's the strongest it's ever been. The willow tree can withstand anything. Now the permission, however, is not like permission to just it's my body's yours. You have permission to use me as a tool for your, sexual whatever it is that I'm putting out there, because women are used for that way, and that's how women are supposed to be, or the feminine is like an object of your affection and your attention. That's not what it is at all. I am the object of my affection. I am the object of my attention, and it's an inward feeling, not an outward projection. If it comes forth outside, it's because it's an overflow from within, not a forced projection of, am I feminine now? Do you see? Okay. So that's one side, the hypersexuality. The other piece of the puzzle where we can go the opposite direction, we split off from ourselves really, is we go into repressed emotionality. So while this is a outward projection of what I think you find feminine, and my whole entire game is to do what nice girls do, or put my, this is what nice girls do. This is what, I want your attention, your approval, my body belongs to you, and I need it to be on display for you. It's not my own. The repressed emotionality is this sense of it's not okay to feel. It's not okay to be in my body and feel anything at all. So a lot of the women that I work with will have such a sense of repressed emotionality, it factors and permeates every area of their life. They don't even know how they feel. When I ask them how they feel, they're really cut off from their own emotions, or they're so concerned about being seen as a sexual object or a sexual being, it's not safe for them to do that, that they will purposely, intentionally not want to appear sexy. Now again, that's not because the clothes that I wear necessarily. It can be an outward manifestation of that, but it's also an inward manifestation of that. Where sometimes we hear people say, you're intimidating. That's not an outward appearance. That's an inward attitude of walls and resistance versus open and flexibility and allowing whatever is, to flow in and out. So when I am emotionally repressed, I don't allow access. So the motto is suck it up, buttercup, never let them see you sweat, power through, man up. And it really longs to dominate the situation and lock things down so that nothing gets, it's a ploy to stay safe, really. And ultimately, it just wants to be logical. See, this emotional repression, it doesn't care. While this cares how it looks rather than how it feels, this cares what it does rather than how it feels. It's about just competition, assertive dominance, control, power. It doesn't want to be in its feelings at all. It wants to be in its achievement. It wants to be in its, just power on, suck it up, and power through. And it doesn't want to live in its senses at all because it's not safe. For me, when I was a little girl, I had both of these things, right? I had all of this repression, not just had my own multiple forms of trauma, but in addition to that, it wasn't safe to feel anything, right? Not to be in my body, it wasn't safe. It wasn't safe for me to have feelings. I had to turn all that stuff off as a survival skill. And thank God I did, hon, because if I didn't, I probably wouldn't have made it through. But as I grew up into a woman in my 20s, I went over here. I used my body for attention. It was like how it looked was directly dependent upon how valuable I was. And my projection of my body, and it might have looked like I was empowered, but I really wasn't. I was scared shitless. I was scared. I was not in control of my body at all. Other people, I used it as a show and a performance. And then later on in life, after I had my daughter, I noticed that even more, my emotionality was repressed. And I started to kind of button down and lock up my sensuality. It wasn't safe again after childbirth, and maybe you can relate to that, or you've gone through phases of your life where it's just not as safe for you to be in your emotions and your feelings, and you need to put things on lockdown again. If you're climbing corporate ladders and you feel like it's a man's world, you'll live over here, but that's not going to be fulfilling for you. Always sucking it up and power through. Why? Because it's like boxing the ocean. You living in that man up, it's a man's world kind of philosophy is like boxing the ocean. It does not work. You end up feeling numb, just like you're kind of going through the motions of your life. You can't really feel anything. And if you're like me, in order to recover from the shame of this behavior, and also from the feeling of, just complete and total checked outness of the other behavior, the dead inside, the like just rigid and oh God, to cope, I drank and I ate and I tried to escape. And for me, it was really that come to Jesus moment almost 10 years ago, where I woke up one day and I said, there has to be another way. Not living in this kind of philosophy that it's not safe to be in my body. I needed a reclamation of my own pleasure, of my own being comfortable in my own skin, no matter what it was or what it looked like to the outside world. Not caring so much about what other people thought versus how I really felt, and using that as a compass. Right? Using my feelings as a compass rather than punishing myself all the time and trying to cut off from my feelings and numbing them out. So maybe you can relate to that. When you think about divine feminine, and you think about if you were going to mother yourself, because again, a lot of this comes from that mother wound, our own mothers just either overtly or covertly trying to teach us what it means to be a woman or to be a feminine human being in the world or live in that energy. What it really means is that it's intuitive. It lives in the five senses. It lives in the pleasure. It's open. It's permission. It allows not other people permission, honey. It gives you permission, right? That's this permission you seek is your own. Permission to feel your feelings. Permission to stand up for yourself, permission to be in your own truth, permission to leave something, permission to say no, permission to be, right? To allow. It also is that non-forceful place where I have to like hustle. I hate that word. I have to tell you, there is a time to hustle, but I'd rather be in the flow, right? And the feminine is in the flow of life. It's a divine connection to your source. When you're rooted down like that willow tree, what are you connected to? Your source, right? Where all the internal wisdom comes in. You get out of your head and into your heart and into your center. But if you're like me and that was wounded, that wasn't safe. You had to stay sharp and with it and smart and know what to do, right? So today is a new day, my love. Let me come alongside of you and pour into you you and be with you and help unlock some of those frozen parts, right? That and let them start flowing again, and help you to encounter yourself really, and not be like anybody else or a version of what people have told you to be, but following your own divine feminine, your authentic feminine. What does it really feel like, right, for you? That's going to be different than everybody else. I love you so much. Go to HeidiRain.com, send me a personal message, and we can start the journey together. See you in another video, or I'll see you soon in my inbox. Bye, love.